Have you ever looked at your life and thought, what's the point of all this? The work, the routine, the noise, and the endless days that blur into each other. And somehow, even when nothing is wrong, everything just feels empty. This is the psychology of people who feel life is meaningless. It's not about weakness or giving up. It's about the quiet exhaustion that comes from living without a why. That feeling of waking up after 8 hours of sleep and realizing your body is rested, but your soul still isn't. And when people ask what's wrong, you can't point to anything specific because it's not one big thing that broke you. It's 1,000 little things that quietly drained you over time. You see, people who feel life has lost its meaning don't always want to die. They just want the noise to stop. The noise of expectations, the noise of comparison, the noise of meaningless living, the noise of pretending to be okay when every day feels like a performance you didn't audition for. Psychologists call this state emotional exhaustion, a point where the mind stops fighting, not from weakness, but from exhaustion. It happens when your emotional output has exceeded your emotional input for too long. When you keep giving energy to survive, but receive almost nothing back. And it's not always something you see coming. From the outside, you might look fine. You're working, smiling, eating, sleeping, doing what needs to be done. But inside, everything feels muted. Everything seems pointless. Joy feels like a language you once spoke fluently, but can't remember anymore. All you want to do is just to lie down. You have no energy for life anymore. And what's fascinating is that this isn't just emotional, it's biological. The brain, under long-term stress, starts to rewire itself for survival. It begins to filter every experience through fatigue. The reward systems slow down. Dopamine response weakens. And that spark that makes life feel meaningful just fades, like a dimming light bulb. So, when someone says, "I'm just tired," I don't have energy for the endless vicious cycle of life anymore. It's not laziness. It's the mind saying, I've been carrying too much for too long. Have you ever felt like that? Behind every tired soul is a story. Not of failure, but of effort. People who feel life is meaningless are often the ones who have tried too hard to keep everything together. They're the peacemakers, the helpers, the ones who always show up, even when they have nothing left to give. They've learned to survive chaos, but never how to rest in peace. Think about it. We live in a world that rewards productivity and motion, not peace. You're praised for working overtime, but never for taking a quiet day to think. You're celebrated for pushing through, but rarely for slowing down. So, people learn to equate worth with movement. They learn to push themselves to feel worthy. They chase the success without the meaning. It's grab, grab, grab. And when they finally stop, they feel guilty, as if rest is a form of failure. That guilt keeps them trapped in quiet exhaustion. Because in their minds, stopping or just being idle means they are not moving forward in life. I am sure you can relate. The mind whispers, you don't deserve rest until you've earned it. But sadly, that's the paradox. If you wait until you've earned rest, you'll never get it. Because there's always more to do, more to prove, more to fix, more to take. And so, you keep running. Even when you've forgotten why you started. No wonder you feel exhausted. No wonder life feels so meaningless. And then you hear of another friend's death. He was only 40 years old, or she was only 35 years old. They were both executives in their prime, both chasing successes, never stopping to rest, never stopping to smell the roses. And now you wonder, what was the point? They never even got to enjoy their success. So here you are wondering why you are chasing the success you are chasing. Why do you want that promotion? Why do you want that house? What joy will buying that car give to you? And at the end of the day, what is your why? Is there even a why? What does all this we are doing mean? Being tired of life doesn't mean you're weak. It often means you've been strong for too long. You've carried emotions you never processed, responsibilities you never asked for, and expectations no one could possibly meet. And after years of pretending those weights don't matter, your spirit begins to whisper, I can't keep doing this. There's a word for that too. It's called anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure. It's not about sadness, it's about emptiness. It's living in grayscale, where even good things feel neutral. That's what happens when the brain goes into self-protection mode. It stops reaching for joy because it has learned that joy is unreliable. It becomes safer to expect nothing than to be disappointed again. People in this state often start to pull away. They don't strive anymore. They always ask, why even bother? Not because they want to be lazy, but because social energy becomes too expensive. Even small talk feels like lifting a mountain. They cancel plans, go silent in conversations, and spend more time alone. They don't stay away because they hate others, but because their nervous system can't handle one more emotional demand. And yet, these individuals are just protecting themselves. When the world becomes too loud, isolation feels like safety. It's like shelter in a storm. And even though the silence can feel empty, at least it doesn't hurt. This kind of fatigue is cumulative. It builds up from years of emotional suppression. Every I'm fine when you weren't fine. Every time you kept working just to pay the bills. Every time you ignored your dreams to please family. Or even worse, to please society. Every smile you forced to avoid questions. Every time you swallowed pain to keep peace. All of it adds up, until one day you can't fake energy anymore. That's when the small signs begin. You notice you don't enjoy music quite the same anymore. Your work gives you no joy. Your laughter feels rehearsed. The company of people stresses you. Time drags. Every day looks the same. You are not passionate about everything. You look around and wonder, when did life stop feeling like life? This is what psychologists call meaning fatigue. When people lose touch with what gives life purpose, everything starts to feel heavy. It's not that you hate your existence. It's that you just can't find a reason to keep repeating it. It's the same every day. Wake up, eat, work, watch TV, sleep, repeat. Days blur together, and slowly, you start asking, what's the point? But that question, what's the point, isn't hopeless. It's a sign of awakening. Because when your soul asks that question, what it's really saying is, I need a reason to live. I need to see a point in life. That moment, as bleak as it feels, is often where transformation begins. Because the truth is, life exhaustion is a message to you. It's a signal from deep inside saying something in your life no longer fits. It means something can still be reclaimed. Purpose, reason, authenticity, and peace. One of the most profound discoveries in psychology is that meaning is medicine. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived the concentration camps, wrote that humans can endure almost any how if they have a why. People who rediscover their why find their energy returning gradually. The tiredness begins to shift from despair to direction, from meaningless to meaningful. It's the difference between I'm exhausted because I don't see the point of life and I'm exhausted because I'm living. So maybe the goal isn't to erase the tiredness. Maybe the goal is actually to listen to it, to treat it not as a curse, but a compass. Because somewhere inside that fatigue is a voice saying, you are reaching for meaning. Maybe it's a job that drains you, a dream nagging at your heart, a passion you buried long ago. Or maybe it's a version of yourself that once survived but no longer thrives. If you feel that quiet ache that whispers, there has to be more than this, you're not broken. You're awakening, and that's beautiful. Because people like you who've known the weight of emotional exhaustion often become the most compassionate souls you'll ever meet. They understand pain without needing words. They sense when others are struggling behind their smiles. They see when the light has left your eyes. They speak softly, love deeply, and value honesty above all else because they've learned that pretending doesn't heal. That's the paradox of seeing life as meaningless. It humbles you. It strips away illusions and forces you to look at what's real. You finally realize that life isn't about constant achievement or endless motion, or even meaningless comparisons. It's about alignment, about finding the quiet spaces where you can breathe without pretending. If you feel that invisible fatigue, that lack of zeal, that quiet ache that has no name, remember this: you are not strange for feeling this way. You are not broken. You are finally seeing life for what it is. You are simply human in a world that has forgotten how to rest. You don't need to fix everything right now. You don't need to fake energy or force joy. You just need to stop running from your tiredness and start listening to what it's trying to tell you. Because sometimes being tired of existing isn't the end. It's the beginning of living differently. When you finally admit that life feels meaningless, something shifts. For the first time, you're being honest. Not with others, but with yourself. And that honesty, though heavy, is the beginning of healing. Because until you name your fatigue, you'll keep trying to fix it with distractions, new goals, new toys, new relationships, new habits, new screens, anything that looks like progress. But what you're craving isn't progress, it's meaning. Meaning doesn't always come from big achievements. Sometimes it hides in quiet moments. Watching the flowers in the garden, playing with your beloved pet, watching rain hit the window, hearing a song that understands you, sitting in silence without needing to perform for anyone. Those are the moments your nervous system finally whispers, "Thank you." Don't feel guilty for resting. Rest is not laziness, it's repair. And when you begin to rest, emotionally, not just physically, you start to see how much of your life was driven by survival, not meaning. Every plan, every goal, every action, all built around creating motion instead of creating calm. And that's okay. The human brain is wired for safety before happiness, but safety without meaning eventually becomes a cage, a hollowness in your heart. Here's the truth most people never say aloud. When you're tired and feel life is meaningless, it's not because you want to give up. It's not because you want to die. No, it's because you want something real to live for. You want meaning. You want it to make sense. You want a reason that makes waking up feel worth it again. And that reason doesn't have to be massive. It just has to be genuine. Psychologists call this existential fatigue, when the soul grows weary from living without direction, not because life is bad, but because it's meaningless. You can have comfort, stability, even success, and still feel empty. What a paradox. No wonder we hear of celebrities, millionaires, and successful people who commit suicide out of depression, It's because humans aren't built to simply survive routines. We're built to feel alive in them. Take a second to ask yourself now, am I feeling empty inside me? Am I starting to question everything? My job, my values, my purpose, my relationships? If you are, then your soul is tired of pretending. That exhaustion you feel when you really listen isn't weakness. It's resistance. It's your mind fighting against a version of life that no longer fits who you are. That's why you can work 12 hours on something you love and still feel alive, but 2 hours on something meaningless can fatigue you. The body follows the soul. So, what can you do when life feels meaningless? Well, you need to find meaning from deep inside you. Start small. Start honest. Begin to be present in every moment. Notice what drains you. Notice what nourishes you. Notice what gives you joy. Maybe it's certain people. Maybe it's certain routines. Maybe it's your job. Maybe it's because you feel no connection with a higher power. Or maybe it's just the version of yourself that's always performing strength. Once you see those patterns, begin to release them. Gently, reach out and connect to that higher power. This daily. Healing isn't a performance. It's a quiet returning. At some point, you will realize that the world isn't asking you to be perfect. It's you who's been demanding that of yourself. It's you who has been pushing yourself relentlessly. You've built impossible standards out of fear that if you stop, you'll fall behind. But behind who? Behind what? The truth is that no one really knows what they're doing. Everyone's just looking for small reasons to keep moving forward. And when you accept yourself for who you are and stop comparing your timeline to others, you begin to see that peace was never behind your achievements. It was always behind accepting who you are. There's something powerful that happens when a person accepts themselves without shame. It changes how they treat themselves. Instead of pushing harder, they start listening deeper. Instead of asking, "Why am I like this?" they ask, "What is my mind trying to tell me?" And that question becomes the bridge back to life. You start rediscovering wonder, not the loud, cinematic kind, but the quiet kind, the beauty of little things, the way the flowers bloom, the sunrise and sunset, the sunlight across your bed, the smell of coffee, the beauty of good health, the way your favorite song makes you feel seen. All of this reminds you that life doesn't need to be extraordinary to be meaningful. It just needs to be felt. Unfortunately, as we grew up, we stopped feeling. We were taught to perform, to work, to do, but not to feel. We never learned to just sit quietly for any reason, no rush and no targets. People who feel life is meaningless just stopped feeling. They became numb. They don't realize that life deserves to be lived consciously, not endured automatically. So, if you're in that place right now, where even breathing feels heavy, when you go through the motion, when simple things like taking a shower feels hard, when one day blurs into the next, I want you to know that you're just human and you're being called to reconnect to what is real, to honesty, to simplicity, to meaning, to being human, to joy, to purpose. And when that reconnection begins, even in the smallest way, the world starts to look different. Mornings feel brighter, colors feel warmer, music sounds joyful, and people feel bearable. You start to laugh again, not because everything's fixed, but because you've made peace with imperfection. And that peace, that quiet acceptance, is where real life begins again. Please know that there will always be days when the weight returns, when everything feels heavy again, when life once again feels meaningless. moments where you question your direction or your progress. But when that happens, you'll know what it means. You'll see it not as the end, but as a reminder. A reminder that you are someone who feels deeply, who thinks deeply, who loves deeply, and who lives deeply. And maybe feeling that life is meaningless isn't failure. Maybe it's the soul's way of saying, you were never meant to live without purpose. And that realization is where everything begins again. If any part of this spoke to you, I want to ask you a small favor. Share your story. Share what it feels like when life loses meaning and what helped you start finding it again. Because someone out there is scrolling right now, feeling exactly like you once did. And your honesty might be the thing that helps them realize they're not alone. Your story could remind someone that healing begins in small, quiet ways. In honesty, in reflection, in knowing that even in emptiness, we still belong. So, tell us in the comments, what has life taught you when it stopped feeling meaningful? Your words could be the reason someone else chooses to keep going. Because sometimes, the simple act of speaking your truth is how meaning begins to return.